It's me, Arav, and today I'm going to be doing part one of reading a book called Flying Cars, The True Story by Andrew Glass. So let's get started. Today will be part one, so let's get started. This is a very impressive book. It has lots of information in it, and I really think you're going to enjoy it. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Newsflash, flying cars are real. So this is the prelogue. As soon as airplanes and cars existed in the early 20th century, people envisioned personal transportation that could be both flown in the air and driven down the street. For the next 100+ years, dreamers and thinkers and engineers devoted themselves to designing and building a flying car. Though their inventions never got off the ground, others, more practical, seemed destined for commercial success, which remained elusive. Despite failure and tragedy, along with ridicule, disapproval, inventors pursued their vision of a flying vehicle that would drive and fly. Here are the stories of some of these determined dreamers and their remarkable creations, as well as a glimpse of current prototypes that may one day be traveling on our highways and airways. And then here's a little photo right over here. Right there. Here we have a little photo. Turn the page. Flying cars, the true story. And here we have sort of like a black and white version of the cover photo. And that looks like a really nice car. And it says for Joanne and Catherine. And here are some quotes. Desire to fly is an idea handed down by our ancestors who, in their grueling travels across trackless land in prehistoric times, looked enviously on the bird soaring freely through space at full speed above all obstacles on our infinite highway of the air. Wilbur Wright. Maybe you should try thinking about the future for a change. You mean like flying cars? Michael Chabon, the Yiddish Policeman's Union. Let's turn the page again. And here are the contents. First, the dream. And so currently there are going to be 15 examples. There are going to be 14 examples, and then into the future. Chapter 1, first the dream. Cars fly every day in fantasy. They soar like pure magic, like the Weasley family car in the Harry Potter series, or by sprouting wings like chitty chitty, bang bang. Some use high-tech gadgetry, allowing well-equipped heroes like James Bond and Batman to make incredible cliffhangers. The visionary engineers and inventors just haven't imagined the flying car. Some have actually built them and drove them up into the sky. And here's a little picture. Dawn of the century. Here you can take a look at that. Full poster. And then cars fly every day in fantasy. They soar by pure magic, like the Weasley family car in the Harry Potter series. Never mind. On the night of September 4th, 1882, inventor Thomas Edison, 1847 to 1931, turned on the light. His generator on Pearl Street produced enough electricity to light up 400 light bulbs in 80 homes in the New York City, thus ushering in an era of modern technomagic. The early years of the 20th century witnessed a multitude of astonishing technology advances. wireless radio communication, recorded sound and moving pictures, horseless carriages that were powered instead by steam, electricity, or gasoline, and most remarkable of all, flying machines. When the first daring birdman took to the air aboard their heavier-than-air flying machines, they accompanied what nearly everyone, including scientists, had deemed to be impossible, a fantasy. And then next. Ancient world storytellers told the tale of an inventor named Daedalus, who constructed wings out of feathers for him and his son Icarus. They strapped the homemade wings from their backs and leaped from a cliff. Young Icarus foolishly soared to the sun. The wax melted and the boy plummeted into the sea. Daedalus flapped sadly off to freedom, proving his artificial wing design was entirely functional, at least mythologically speaking. Inventor Leonardo da Vinci, 1452 to 1519, studied birds in flight. He made many analytic drawings of their wings and then designed the human-powered flying machine. He also came up with the idea for a car propelled by a tightly wound spring. Although Leonardo lacked an actual engine to power his device, so his designs were not mythological tales. They were real plans, concepts that anticipated transportation technologies hundreds of years in the future. Midway through the 19th century, a French sea captain, Jean-Marie Le Bris, 1817 to 1872, was inspired by the flight of an albatross, a large seabird. Like Da Vinci, he made meticulous studies of how birds' aerodynamic shape aids its movement through the air. Then, using his knowledge of ship design, Le Bris constructed stretched caught over wood and constructed a glider with 50-foot wingspan. He designed pilots to raise and lower the glider's tail and hand levers to adjust the angle of the wings. He wanted to simulate the subtle interaction between wings and air that controlled the direction of its albatross's flight and gave the bird ability to stay aloft so effortlessly. And so, before we get on to the next sentence, let me show you the picture. So here is the first picture of Daedalus and Icarus, and here is the second picture of G's design. And he also built a horse-drawn cart for carrying and launching his mechanical bird, and in 1857 he applied for a patent on artificial albatross or aerial car. Eyewitness accounts of the aerial car's trial run described how Le Bris instructed his driver to race the cart along a road while heading into the direction of the wind. Atop the car was the albatross, courageously piloted by Captain Le Bris himself. It caught a 10-knot breeze and soared majestically into some 300 feet along the air. But when the unfortunate cart driver became snagged in a restraining rope and was dangling behind, the glider itself and the unlucky driver only sustained minor damage in the landing. Le Bris rebuilt the albatross, but further attempts to launch it ended badly. Finally, the aerial car was demolished during a disastrous landing that also broke the inventor's leg. This concludes Le Bris's wheel-to-wings adventure. However, his aerial car was the first aircraft to be piloted to a higher altitude than the point of departure, and also the first flying machine to be photographed. So, let's take a look at this photo. So here it is. The first photograph of a flying machine. The Albatross, 1868. Chapter 2, Gustav Whitehead's Condor. When he was a boy, Gustav Albin Weisskopf, 1874 to 1977, fabricated a pair of wings and leaped from the roof of his grandparents' house in Ansbach, Germany. I wonder how he survived, but he must have sustained injuries, at least. At the age of 13, he was apprenticed to a machinist and learned how to build engines. He left Germany in the late 1880s and eventually arrived in America, an experienced sailor and machinist. He was hired by a Harvard professor as a chief mechanic, in charge of testing experimental kites. He also constructed gliders for the Boston Aeronautical Society, following well-established design. By 1897, he successfully made short flights. In New York City, he built and flew kites, engineered to carry a man's weight. Scientific kite flying, as it was called, was cutting-edge aviation technology at the time. Anyway, so let's take a look at the Whitehead airship. And here's a photo of the Whitehead airship. Yeah. See this? This is the Whitehead airship. In Buffalo, New York, he changed his name to Gustav Whitehead so he would sound more American. He called himself Gus and began referring to himself as an aeronaut. From Buffalo, he moved to Pittsburgh, then on to Baltimore, taking employment as a factory worker and a coal miner and a skilled repairman. He moved to Bridgeport, Connecticut, where he found work as a night watch. Where was I? Night watchman. In each city, he resolutely continued his research into manned flight, and he constructed and publicly demonstrated his airships. He was certain that the right motor would make the power flight possible. So he worked to perfect his engines, making them smaller and lighter. In Pittsburgh, he created his own glider equipped with a steam engine of his own design. A friend and collaborator later swore that they flew the steam-powered airship into a brick building, resulting in a fiery crash, which was followed by a vigorous request from the Pittsburgh police that they cease dubious experiments or leave town. According to Whitehead, the flight was more or less successful, unquote. Convinced that some form of privately owned flying vehicle, which would one day be part of a daily life, Whitehead began formulating plans to build a passenger airship that could be adapted for driving along roads to a public park. Field or open meadow for taking off. He believed that airships needed to be drivable like the motorized carriages of his day, and also function in the water if they were to efficiently transport aeronauts like himself to their destinations. And then here are some pictures. So this one is Gus holding the engine, and this one is a different view of the Condor. Wow, here it is. In a shed behind his house on Pine Street in Bridgeport, Whitehead re-engineered a conventional bird-shaped glider that he'd built in New York. He called it the Condor 21 after the birds he'd watched soaring effortlessly off the coast of South America. With its boat-shaped gondola where the pilot could sit or stand while operating the control stick, his airship resembled the Albatross glider of Captain Labris, another experienced sailor. But the two-passenger vehicle didn't need a horse for locomotion. Whitehead had designed and built two engines powered by a series of rapid gas explosions. The smaller engines produced enough piston to pressure to provide 10 horsepower to the front wheels for driving. The larger 20 horsepower engine added more power for taking off and to spin two propellers, which were designed to counter-rotate for stability in the air. The Condor's 36-foot wings, made of bamboo poles covered with canvas, could be folded into 9 segments and stored against the cabin. A flat fan-shaped tail controlled the ascent and descent of the Condor in flight. Just after midnight on August 14, 1901, Gustav Whitehead, with an assistant airborne, slowly drove his 16-foot assistant air flying automobile, its wings neatly folded alongside Pine Street in Bridgeport. The entire contraption rode on 4 small wheels. Reaching a paved stretch of road, they raced off an estimated 20 to 30 miles per hour. A second assistant and reporter from Bridgeport Herald kept up as best as they could on bicycles. Later in the first light of dawn, both engines were tested and every structure, joint, and rod examined. By early morning, they had succeeded to make an unmanned trial flight. According to one account, a milkman who'd stopped on the road nearly lost control of a startled horse when the Condor's outstretched wings flapped in the breeze. Whitehead took his place in the gondola and opened the throttle of the ground engine. The vehicle motored along for 100 yards, picking up speed, and then he flipped the lever, adding the ground engine's power to that one of a more powerful propeller engine. The same lever caused the wing canvas to spring taut. Instantly, the bow lifted and the airship shot up like a kite, powered by its twin propellers. The Condor reportedly chugged along in a straight line 50 feet above ground until Whitehead realized he was not going to clear the stand of the chestnut tree that lay ahead. He may have tried altering the speed of individual propellers to control the airship in flight, or maybe he tried to bend the wings with the control stick, which was attached to the guide wires. In any event, dramatically shifting his weight from one side at the last moment caused the Condor to veer from its course, banking around danger. After the motoring through the air for more than a mile, he shut down the engine and landed in the Condor lightly on its 4 wooden wheels. This was the happiest moment of my life, for I had demonstrated that the machine I had worked so many years on would do what I claimed for it. It was a grand sensation to be flying into the air. There was nothing like it. The August 18th, 1901 edition of the Bridgeport Herald carried a full-page article stating Gus Whitehead's Condor had flown near Bridgeport, Connecticut. Newspapers all over America and around the world had picked up the story of the flying automobile. Another Condor with a foldable tail, rear wheel steering, improved engines, and ribs made. Hold on a sec. Before we turn to the next page, I'm going to show you this newspaper. Gus's viral story. And yeah. So let's read the next page. Steel and aluminum tubing was reported to have made even longer flights. But in spite of its notable success as a flying machine, it proved difficult to control in high winds. Whitehead abandoned experimenting with the, quote, roadable airship to pursue the more reliable business of supplying his efficient, lightweight motors to other pioneering aviators. Some flight historians have contested Whitehead's claim and that of his supporters that his flying automobile preceded the Wright brothers in the air by more than 2 years. They remain unconvinced that the Condor ever got off the ground. Others have acknowledged Whitehead's flight history as first man, power, controlled, sustained, flight in a heavier than aircraft. Despite the controversy, the Chronicle of Gustav Whitehead's flying automobile made a possibility arose in the early years of the 20th century. Instead of breaking into two completely separate machines, one for driving and one for flying, motorized travel might involve a personal transportation machine with wings for flying and wheels for driving. However, the Wright brothers flyers, which didn't even have wheels for takeoff, let alone drivability, was designed with greater potential for controlled flight than Condor and proved more suitable for both commercial and military purposes. So instead of being embraced from the start, the flying car became something like a recurring dream and a technological ideal to be pursued and promoted into a few determined inventions. On June 26, 2013, Connecticut Governor Daniel P. Molley signed into law measures declaring that Gustav Whitehead of Bridgeport, Connecticut, flew a flying automobile in 1901, more than 2 years before Orville Wright claimed to have successfully motored from atop a sand dune in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. So those are the first two chapters, and that's all I'll be reading for today. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you guys next time.